thanks for asking. It's Kalpana.
Kalpana.
Yeah.
I was thinking Kalpana.
No, most people do. It's fine.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Kalpana.
Kalpana. Mm-hmm.
Do you know what it means?
It means imagination.
So you're going to have this sucker
Okay, gotcha.
much closer to you. Just like kind of like have fists that way. Max.
Okay, gotcha.
So you kind of have to be like,
Yeah, like
really
right on
careful.
it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, what were you saying? What does it mean?
It means imagination.
Ooh.
Yeah. So
I love that.
kind of cheesy, but it works out because I became an actor. So
Yeah. And a space nerd.
yeah, exactly. All of it requires imagination.
Yeah.
Like Einstein said, one of his most famous quotes was, "Imagination is more important than knowledge," and I very much agree.
I love that.
Yeah. It's like he came up with his theories of relativity through just walking, going for a walk. So he was just using his imagination. It wasn't like a mathematical formula yet. His first hypothesis of it was just imagining what the fabric of space-time is like. So
Yeah.
So it's quite inspiring.
It's imagination plus taking action.
Yeah.
Because I feel like there are so many people who have like such strong imagination and they have great ideas and then they just never do anything about it.
Yeah, exactly.
You know?
Right? Absolutely. Having the confidence in your conviction, whether or not it's right or wrong, but just to go for it and try. Otherwise,
Yeah.
you never know. Yeah.
Absolutely. So usually when I have more time to
Sure.
prepare for an episode, I like to like do like a little bit of like a digging and like, you know, dive in like the credentials and like a past of like my guest and like
Sure.
have this like whole draft ready and all that. We had a very rushed episode today, which I am very happy with. I've been wanting to have you on for such a long time, and you know, you're obviously very busy acting and you're also based in Ohio.
Right.
So today when you told me yes,
I
I canceled things.
Oh, really?
I
I'm
was
so
like,
flattered.
I was like, we're doing this in an hour, basically.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And I'm so honored to be here itself. So with my short trip to LA, most of it being for the shoot, I have some free time here and there that I only know of, like the day of. But you and like one other person are a priority for me to see this trip. And like other friends, I'm like, if I don't get to see you, I'll see you next time.
Yeah.
But making this happen was a priority for me. So I'm glad it worked out.
Hell yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I've been watching your videos and enjoying them obviously for a really long time.
Oh, thank you.
And yeah, very happy to have you here. Thank you for making the time.
Of course.
So I want to know how you got into the whole like space thing.
Sure.
Did you study it at school? Was it just a hobby you picked up and a fascination you followed?
Yeah, it certainly was more of the latter. So although I did take some classes in college, I was a business major, but space is just always something that's fascinated me since I was a kid. And I don't have like a necessary first memory of it. Like people ask what got you into it. You know, was it the first time you looked through a telescope? But it was really none of that. I think it's almost like part of my like past life. My past life had like a fascination with it and just carried over because that's how much since I was a kid I've been interested in it. And then moving to LA eventually, although it was moving here for acting, I never let go of the space stuff. So here we have Griffith Observatory where I started working, I think in 2015. And just like on the weekends, and it was great because I just got to nerd out with the public if they had questions about space stuff. But it also allowed me to run that with my brand a bit more because I realized that, especially in Hollywood, as the sci-fi aspect of stuff keeps growing, I'm like, I could use this for branding. And the social media opened up those avenues as well. So now it's very much a part of like my acting world, strangely enough. But I just love it. I think anything that allows you to have perspective, like the view of the bigger picture and things, I think is just very important for your soul.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you can get bogged down by very petty things that happen on a daily basis. So if anything, it's almost as philosophical as it is scientific to
100%.
me, right? Just pondering the universe itself.
It's so philosophical. Like I'm not obviously like nearly as knowledgeable in this material at all. But every time I've listened to like a space podcast or I watched Neil deGrasse Tyson's Cosmos on Netflix, like one thing that it always does to me, somehow it just connects some weird dots in my head. You know, like it turns into this really philosophical like pondering, like you said. And I'm like, oh my my God, it's exactly like, it's like that. And like, I have this like weird circles in my head, and then I like snap out of it, you know?
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I'm so glad to hear that that's the effect it has on you. Because sometimes it can be like, oh, it's just an overwhelming science, especially when you take the physics into account.
It's so overwhelming.
Right? It's just like only few brains in the world, I swear, could even comprehend that level of complex physics or theoretical physics.
Yeah.
But like if you take all of that out and you just really think about it conceptually,
Yeah.
it'll have a profound experience. And that's the realm I more so dive into. Although I do know some physics, it's like the last thing that most people care about. So the conceptual stuff is what I like.
So hard to understand. Like it's so hard to, as you said, conceptualize. When you think there are like 2 trillion galaxies in our observable distance.
Right.
I don't know what number that is. I can't imagine. You know, I understand 1 million. That's 1,000.
Exactly.
That's 2,000.
Right.
Anything after that
is
so hard to understand. Even the difference from 1 million and 1 billion, it's so hard to understand.
Exponentially so much more. Even though like when you think about it, you're like, oh, 1 million, billion, trillion. But it's like those increments are ridiculous.
Yeah, and then it comes to trillion. I'm like,
yeah, and that itself is just there's
no internet.
Oh, that's okay. I think I might actually get this wrong too. If I remember correctly, one of my colleagues at the observatory told me if you were to like count every second, like just in the second increment, to count to 1 million, I'm going to get this number wrong. I think it's like 11 hours, but to count to 1 billion, it's like 32 days. So just that jump in incremental time is crazy. Yeah. And then jumping even more than that, when you think the fact that our universe theoretically has been around like almost 14 billion years, and you're like, okay, but when you really think about what that is, that's just, it's nothing. I mean, it's nothing in the sense of nothing we can comprehend, because it's just so much time.
It's so much time, but then bigger questions come. Like, okay, then what happened before Big Bang?
Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
What happened before that almost 14 billion years?
Right.
Did the Earth still used to exist? And you know, there are a lot of theories that say, yeah, it did. It's just this like cycle of expansion, and then like, you know, say like Big Bang, and like same things happen to condense. Same, it's like a cycle, like a life cycle.
Yeah, the cycle thing is something I've always liked, because there's really no beginning and end per se. You know what I mean? It's something that I feel more, what's the word, like cozy with. However, as time in like more recent times, the more accepted theories these days, even though that is still a big contender, is that eventually the universe will just die. And it's an inconceivable amount of time. Like the amount of zeros I'd have to write out would take me like a year to do. But then that implies that there was kind of a beginning, but I've always, and I don't think anyone can comprehend what existed before the Big Bang, because we're so programmed to think linearly like that, like a beginning and end, because that's how our lives are. But when you think about the fact that the universe itself could have had
maybe have that a little bit closer.
Oh, sure. Like the universe itself could have had a beginning. Like that's inconceivable, because if we're in the universe, what was here before it? Yeah. And so that's why I've always liked like a cycle type of theory. Yeah. Just because it gives more of an answer as opposed to nothing.
Well, I feel like that would make some people very uncomfortable, actually knowing that it existed beforehand and it will always exist. Because maybe the way we comprehend things, the way we make meaning of things is like birth, death, comes, goes. But then if it's eternal, then what does that really mean for us?
Right.
But then there are different theories. Like Elon Musk thinks in 1 billion years we're going to be consumed by the sun. But then Brian Cox thinks... No, it could be just like this life cycle thing we're talking about.
Sure. Gotcha. Right? Yeah. I think with our sun, in like they say, about 5 billion years, it will die for sure. Like it'll expand out. I don't know exactly how far it'll get. I don't know if it'll engulf Earth. It might. But we still have certainly more than 1 billion years. So I don't agree with Musk on that either. But eventually, if humans are still even around 5 billion years from now, we would hopefully by then have to have found another home. But I think the Earth will be unlivable probably even far before that time.
Far before.
Yeah, right? I mean, just even now, every year is like record heat. And then so you think like 20 years, I don't even think LA will be super livable at that time. So, yeah.
And maybe not just like livable, but enjoyable to live.
Yeah, that's
You know
important.
what I mean?
That's true.
Like, sure, maybe it'll be livable, but it'll be like the North Korea of the galaxy.
Right.
It's like, yeah, you can be there, but do you want to?
Do you want to? I love that. That's so true. Exactly. And that brings me to like, people always ask me about the Fermi Paradox, which just basically talks about if life could exist in abundancy in even our own galaxy, why haven't we found anyone yet? And there's all these ideas as to if they do exist, why don't they want to interact with us? And one of them that I love is like, which I just think is hilarious, that Earth is like the boondocks. We're like the trailer trash in the galaxy.
Yeah.
So like no one cares to even talk to us. So they see us and they're like, never mind. And they move on.
Would you?
No.
Like, imagine you're looking
either.
from afar
Right.
at this species that's killing all the fish, killing all the animals. There's
Exactly.
fires going on everywhere. There's just pumps of smoke and dust and debris in the air. They're killing each other. Why are they killing each other?
Yeah.
Oh, they discovered this huge atomic energy and power, and they're using it against each other?
I know.
What?
Girl, perspective, right? It's inconceivable how destructive we still are, even though we have the capability to even be aware of our own destruction. So yeah, if I was alien life just like driving by, I'd be like,
peace.
Yeah, I wouldn't even bother. It would just, it's like that movie Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Like they're just psychotic, and why would you even want to venture down that road? So that's kind of what I think. When people are like, okay, if aliens exist, why haven't they contacted us? I think it's just like, why would you want to?
They do not want to associate.
No, seriously. If they had the technology to just like traverse about, this is not the place they'd want to come. So that's kind of what I was thinking. That's the thought I'm gonna go with.
Yeah, no, I totally see it. It's like planetism. It's like racism for planets.
Yeah, exactly. I know, like they have like a class structure.
Right.
Like only species with this level of intelligence and this like warp drive capability, they're the only ones we're gonna talk to. Everyone else is like trash. So we're just gonna avoid that.
Yeah. I feel like even like in the future, like the humans who do go and inhabit Mars, I think even they're gonna look down on us. You know?
Right.
Like a few generations down the line, they're gonna like, there's gonna be like a few of them that are, you know, like they're planetists.
Yeah.
They look at us and they're like, look at these humans. And then they're always the liberal ones. They're like, no.
Right.
You know, you have to understand where they come from. Exactly. Equality, we're the same.
Yeah. I know.
And it's going to be like this huge like social thing between them.
I think you're absolutely right. So I haven't seen the show yet, even though everyone tells me I should, but there's a show on Amazon called The Expanse. And I think that's essentially the premise of it. So at this point in the future, humans have inhabited Mars and they live on another dwarf planet that's between Mars and us, which actually exists in the asteroid belt. It's called Ceres. And it's essentially about their like class structure between these three bodies, heavenly bodies now. So you kind of like predicted the show already. I haven't seen it. I hear it's really good in terms of like sci-fi standards. So check it out at some point. I just have a hard time starting shows.
I know, same.
Right?
I'm scared to start something that's good. That's why I always watch the same things over and over and over and over and over again. My roommate was telling me, did you know that that's actually a big sign of anxiety when people watch the same shows over and over again? Because they're afraid that the new show is like going to let them down. It's not going to be good. So they just watch the same show. And I was like, but that's not the reason I watch the same shows.
Right.
I watch the same shows because I'm afraid I'm going to like something. And then I'm going to want to binge it. And then I'm not going to get shit done. Yeah.
That's so true though, right? That's actually very valid. Like the idea of getting hooked onto something when you're like, this shouldn't be a priority right now, but you just get so attached. Girl, I never thought of it that way, but I think I'm the same as you. It's not like, really anxiety for me either. It's just like, I'm going to waste my time on this.
Yeah. I'm like, you tell me something's good, I'm going to stay away from it.
Yeah. I love that.
Quality, hate it.
Yeah. Just give me some mindless trash, please.
Yeah.
So I can just leave in the background.
Yeah. I'm just like trying to eat my food or like do something, and I just like need to be like brain dead, you know?
Right. Yeah, exactly. You're right on that. That happened recently with me with that show Downton Abbey. It's been out for like years now.
I heard it's good.
It's really good. And my sister, when she visited me a month or so ago, She's like, just start it. And I'm like, damn it, fine. And then that's all I watched. I was just hooked. 6 seasons of it. I probably finished in, I can't sit down for like one night and do it all, but like probably 5 days or so. So that's all I was watching because they're long episodes. And I'm like, damn it. I enjoyed the show though, but I was like, how much more could I have gotten done with my own stuff?
And then that thought, would you say you have like an addictive or like obsessive personality type?
I think to some degree, it's kind of like you have to see it through. Yeah. So unless like if the show was complete trash, I would have abandoned it. But when I'm like, I can't justify leaving it, then I have to see it through, even though I know I have other things to do. So yeah, it's like, I got to complete it, or anything for that matter, even if I don't want to.
What would you say is like the best like space or sci-fi like show or movie you've ever watched?
So my top 3 favorite sci-fi films, I like the realistic dramatic films. So that doesn't include to me stuff like Star Wars or Star Trek, which is like pure sci-fi action adventure. I like the more grounded dramatic ones. So my all-time favorite is probably, I think it's 97 or 98 movie called Contact, and it's based on Carl Sagan's book. And everybody in the astronomy field absolutely loves this man because he's essentially what made space like fun and great to people back in like the 60s. Yeah. And so he wrote a book that the movie Contact is based on. It was a Jodie Foster, and I just loved it. It's such an interesting point as like, okay, if we do get contacted by other life out there, what implications does it have on humanity? And so, and the lead character, she goes through just an amazing character arc, and I just love the film. And then right up there,
and it came out at you said 1960.
So he's from the 60s, but the movie was made in like 97 or something like that.
I was like, damn, he came out with a movie the year after moon landing.
I know, right?
That's quick.
That would be. I should check into what movies were like came out right after. That'd be really cool to see what they would do. But right behind that movie is that movie Arrival that came out in 2017, I think, with Amy Adams. Another fantastic film where I think it had a really great lead character. And once again, the implications of if life were to be here, other life forms, the implications as to what humanity would do. And they really did a great job messing with the idea of time actually is relative in that film because, not to give any spoilers, to be honest, I have to see it again because I don't really remember every detail, but it's just such a good movie. And then my third favorite would probably be Interstellar that came out in 2014.
So I heard so much about that movie. I haven't watched any of the ones you said. So I'm not a movie buff like at all.
Gotcha.
I don't watch movies. I don't know. It's just like TV to me. I feel guilty when I watch TV for like more than a little bit. Sure. And it sucks. I'm like, why am I like this?
Girl, I got you. There are people like, I think I love film specific ones. I think most of them today are trash, but probably just because I'm in the industry. Yeah. But then like, and I like the art of storytelling. Yes. But there are people like, I have some friends who are just cinephiles. They're just obsessed and like every little detail. And I'm like, whatever floats your boat. But the amount of time they devote to it, I'm like, I can never do that. But yeah. So with Interstellar, I like, once again, the premise. But to me, the only problem I had is with the dialogue. And that's just something I have an issue with Christopher Nolan, the director in general. To me, I think sometimes his dialogue is a little on the nose. So instead of like allowing your audience to come to their own conclusions, you're literally spelling it out for them. And that just bothers me because like nobody speaks
That's
that
something
way.
I hate in books.
Right.
Very early on, I usually reading a book, I see if the author is trying to get me to think a specific way. And I have literally put away books because of that.
Right.
Because that's biased.
Yeah,
literally.
Exactly. That's a really good point. Yeah. It's like give them the information and allow them to come to their own conclusions. And so that bothered me about the film, but cinematically beautiful.
Yeah.
And
it won an Oscar.
I think so. Yeah. I don't think it won Best Picture, but I think like something. It certainly won some stuff for sure. And I also love like movie scores, like the composers and what they do for these films. To me, they're like the modern day, like Mozart's. Because we don't have that really anymore. But I think Hans Zimmer did a fantastic job composing music for that movie. Half the movie was great just because of that music. So those are the 3 in that like realistic sci-fi that I'd recommend. in terms of like other sci-fi, you always have those like Star Wars type stuff.
I haven't even watched Star Wars. Every now and then I'll go on a date and I mention that, and the guy's eyes pop out of his head. I'm like, here we go.
Oh God. So see, these like sci-fi nerdy fan people are the worst people ever, because like.
But I'm like that with like Marvel.
Okay, gotcha.
I remember many years ago, I went out with like this Australian football player, and I told him about the Avengers, and he had no idea what it was. And I was like, what? I was offended. I was, what? You don't know the Hulk? You don't know Iron Man? You don't know Captain America?
Right. And then, so I guess we all have our like moments of judgment.
Oh yeah.
When like people don't know.
With that look on your face, like, you don't know?
It's like blasphemy.
Like, you just start thinking less of them.
I know, exactly. Like, where have you been in the past 10 years, bro?
Under a rock, obviously.
Yeah, I know, seriously, right? And if anything, he was like super productive, like getting things done.
Yeah,
but still though, there are certain things in life that like you should know.
Yeah.
Especially in like the pop culture world. So,
right.
Yeah. So
it's like, I know what Star Wars is. I just haven't watched it.
Yeah,
he didn't know what Avengers were.
Right.
You know, it's not that he was like, no, I know, and I was just like, I'm not into it. I didn't watch it. It's like, what is that? I was like,
he just like he saw the word Marvel and was like, oh, I'm like marveling at this beautiful girl. No, bro, I'm talking about the comics that have been around since like the 30s or maybe a little later. But yeah, that's. Well, yeah, then that I would judge too, because that's just like, where have you been though? It's one thing
playing football.
Yeah, I guess so. Well, yeah, but yeah. So those movies I love. But like you two, I haven't watched too much stuff recently. Just because the idea of having to start something and then complete it through, I know the toll it takes. So
yeah, and it's hard to like get into stuff too, because usually it's like a build up.
Right.
I have no patience for that. Yeah. You know, and like, I like the things that catch your attention immediately.
Right.
You know? And that's like actually a really important introduction tip for anything, like for writing a paper, essay, book, film. They always encourage like makers, authors, you know, to always start with a bang, you know, with an attention catcher.
Sure.
And like, you know, some films, some series do that so much better. You know, like you start watching something, you know, to go back to our Avengers thing. Sure. I think the best movie ever who did this specific thing is Infinity War. I have never sat in the movies. I mean, I don't know if you watched this, but within the first, as soon as the movie starts, you're like nailed into your chair. And for like the first, I want to say like 5 minutes, you're just like, just quiet and just like, and it's like craziness. And then after that 5 minutes, it like slows down and it like, you know, writes the name of the movie or whatever. And then you're like, what the fuck? Yeah. Like, what a beginning.
Right.
I mean, for whoever who has watched Infinity War, have you?
You know, I haven't actually.
It's okay, I forgive you.
I know. I was like, damn it, she's a huge Marvel fan. So I, at least I'm aware of Marvel. I've always been a DC Comics person. I won't say.
Out of here.
She's like, we can just end the session now. So I won't say that the movies recently have been great.
That's just Batman and Superman.
Well, okay. So Marvel actually started after DC Comics and was inspired by. I watched a documentary on it sometime last year. So
yeah, it's like a student that gets better than the master.
But I've always thought that DC villains especially and their main heroes are so much more interesting. I think for me, the thing about Marvel that I just couldn't get into is just how, I don't know, maybe I just like dark shit, but like DC to me just had more depth to it. And again, I'm not saying their movies recently
I can actually kind of see that. I don't feel like Marvel necessarily has a lot of like depth, or like philosophical meanings to it. Right. I feel like DC probably does a better of a job in doing that. But they just seem silly to me.
Yeah, their execution.
Like, Batman is silly. Like, why are you making that voice? I know you don't sound like this. Like, just
oh, yeah, the Christian Bale version. That was a little strange. It did sound like he had, like, throat cancer. So when, like, Ben Affleck's Batman came on, they actually gave him, like, a voice changer.
Really?
They probably took that criticism to heart, which they should, because it sounded a little nutty.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
Joker's the best villain ever.
Yeah, without doubt.
Ever. ever.
Exactly.
And that's like, even I thought that before the last Joker movie came. And I mean, like, the actor killed it, obviously. But I think Joker is just like, you know, we were talking about like depth and darkness. And I feel like he really like pictures that like so perfectly.
Right.
But Marvel side, I don't know if you know who Thanos is.
Yeah. Sure. I do.
Daddy.
Okay, so Thanos to me is a ripoff of Darkseid, who is created before him.
Oh, really?
Date-wise. DC Comics.
I don't know that.
No, that's okay. Actually, he hasn't, like, unless you, like, actually read the comics or, like, watch the animated stuff, he hasn't really popped up in the films.
Yeah.
He was supposed to be introduced as, like, the main bad guy in Justice League and all of that stuff. Those movies didn't do well, so that storyline never went anywhere. But if like the animated stuff back in the day and like the main comics, he's like one of the main villains of that.
And there's similarities in like characteristics.
Yeah, and even just like their general animation, they look fairly similar. So they're the two that I tend to like compare. And then essentially they're like wanting to conquer the universe type of mentality. However, Thanos' like perspective of, it's like you can kind of sometimes be on his side.
He's an INTJ,
yeah,
just like you.
Oh, right. And so I do like him as a villain because it's not just like, oh, I'm just pure evil. Like he thinks he's doing what's best, and that's actually really fascinating.
Right.
Yeah.
So another thing I loved about Infinity War and why it's such a favorite movie is because for the first time ever, the villain wins.
Right.
That never happens.
Exactly.
Ever.
Right.
Like, I remember the day I watched that movie in the theater, and it was so emotional.
Sure.
You know, like at the end of it when Spider-Man died,
Right,
when the villain won,
yeah,
like there was this like heaviness.
Yeah, absolutely.
In the theater. And I was like the only one who was happy because I was like, I'm digging this. This is new.
Yeah.
This has never happened. Also, I love Thanos. I completely see his vision.
Yeah, certainly.
Weirdly.
Right?
I don't know if that makes me sound bad, but I'm like,
no,
he was
agree.
kind of trying to do exactly what COVID is doing right now.
Right. No, it's true. Like there needs to be some sense of sustainability. Right. And like essentially that's what he was trying to do. But you're right. And especially for like the genre of those films too that tend to be a bit more lighthearted. The fact that they went there, I had high respect for that. That it wasn't like the good guy's just always going to win no matter what.
I know.
Yeah, I thought that was really a really cool thing that they did. And clearly gripped people, so it worked out really well.
Yeah. And it's at random.
Right.
You know, it's fair. I had this debate with so many of my friends where they would ask me, so if your family had to go randomly, would you be okay with it? And I was like, it would suck, but anytime there is something for a greater good, even if it means myself, even if it means my mom, my brother that like mean the world to me, if it's for a greater good, fuck yeah.
Right.
Wouldn't that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. No, girl, I know what you mean. I've thought of this stuff too, because it's like, okay, are you someone who can just like dish it out? But when it affects you, you're like, oh, but I want to be excluded from it. But no, I think the same way too. Like thinking long term and for the collective greater good, if that's what it means, like, kind of what you have to go with.
As long as it's not painful.
Yeah, exactly. Like they just like
snap your finger and I just like turn into ashes. Sick.
Exactly. I know. Wouldn't that actually be the dream? So you like never
Take
suffer.
Me. I know.
That's right. Yeah, if they just like disintegrated.
Right.
Okay. I mean, it's out of my control anyway. So there you go.
Fuck in here.
Yeah. I have like cleavage sweat, but it's all good though. It happens. That just means they're a good size, right?
Yeah.
That's right.
I bet A cups never get cleavage.
No, exactly. They would be that idea would be so foreign to them. So it's a sacrifice we have to make.
So, we talked about. I briefly brought up moon landing, and it reminded me of this video you made. It was so funny. It's one of your most popular videos on TikTok. Where you are basically talking to people who believe in the conspiracy theory that the moon landing never happened in 59 and, you know, it was made up.
Right.
So let's get into that.
Okay, great. Yes, absolutely. So those conspiracy videos that I do tend to be some of the most popular because they draw so much conflict with people, which is also not really, I mean, I know it's going to happen, but I'm not sitting there trying to be puppet master to create conflict because it's such a fucking headache. Like, I don't want to sit there And it drains you. But, you know, so these are things I respond to when people ask me. So someone will tag me in a conspiracy video and then I'm like, shit, okay, let me rebuttal this. But I don't go out of my way to like go search for this crap myself. I'll shoot myself if I had to go down that rabbit hole.
And those are so much fun to watch. And actually one thing that led me to immediately guess your personality type was, I think, like, paying attention to a couple of your videos.
Sure.
You know, because I would always watch them, but I would never think in the lens of like, let me guess her personality type. But like today I watched a couple and I was like, 100% she's INTJ. Like, it was so obvious to me.
That's amazing.
It's because you start these videos, you're so pissed.
Oh my
You're
God, yeah.
so pissed at these people. Like, and I could totally imagine how like some other person who like, you know, does the same thing as you,
Sure.
they're like, breathe before, and they're like, okay, I'm gonna be nice, I'm gonna be like very, you know, just like super polite and kind and inclusive, and I'm gonna like answer to these very dumb people,
Right.
But you start your videos, I can tell, before you
like take that moment,
like take that moment to like solve your emotions, because your emotions like can't come right out.
Yeah.
You know, you're like, you dumb fucks.
Yeah, literally, that's exactly right. It starts with and then just cursing throughout the whole goddamn thing.
Makes it so much better.
Right? Well, and that's the thing. Like, I'm not beholden to any like university where I have to like save face. I don't give a shit. Like this TikTok I just do for fun. So I can say whatever I want. And it's certainly rubbed people the wrong way, which again, I don't care. And I tell them that. But like, I respond very harshly because that's the way I am treated to begin with by conspiracy people. When I first started that page, they literally sought me out just to come and like shit on me and just call me names and call me sheep. So they're bringing the anger. And so I'm like, I don't have to be the bigger person. So I respond the same way. But one thing I can't stand, well, there's many things. One major thing in the world that I can't stand is disrespect. So it's not just like when you deny the fact that we landed on the moon, the amount of people throughout history who got us to that point, you're taking a shit on all of them because of your, I don't know. I still can't understand why people fall down that rabbit hole. There's a sense of like needing to be important.
It's convincing. Not gonna lie. I had a moment when I thought about it.
Mm-hmm.
You know why? Because out of the three guys who went, not Neil, what's the other guy's name?
Buzz Aldrin?
Buzz Aldrin.
Mm-hmm.
So like there's a video of him afterwards where he's like, no, we didn't see any stars. And then like, you know, he comes like many years later in a book or in a film, I don't remember, and he describes the stars to a T.
Okay, gotcha.
So there was like all these like weird little sketchy moments.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Sure.
And for somebody who's just like a general public, you know, who doesn't have like the in-depth knowledge like you do.
Sure.
And you have a general distrust in, you know, our authority and our government. And you, like, we know they make shit up. Like, it's, you know, it's not news. So then it's kind of like, I don't know. But then it's amazing that, like, you come in and you're like, hey, dumb fuck.
Yeah.
That footprint you're seeing.
Oh, yeah, good
so
Lord.
Funny.
That video, my God, because someone just made that shit up and they're like, this person descending from the lunar lander's footprint or shoe is different than the footprint of the image of Neil's. And I'm like, holy shit. Like, you waste so much time on the internet and this is the stuff you come up with. And then so I go through the whole video explaining as to how just absolutely ridiculous that is. But yeah, I'm like trying to be more sympathetic or empathetic that people can fall into those rabbit holes a bit. Yeah. And it does come from, like you said, the general mistrust of government. It just, but I still haven't been able to be empathetic enough. Yeah. Like I just can't.
Because you know better. Because you understand it deeply.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
So for you, it's easier, you know?
Right. And to me, I just never saw, like, what would them lying about that? What is there to be gained? That they lied, that they, and then the most convincing thing I ever heard has nothing to do with even like math or evidence. The fact that Russia, back then the Soviet, admitted that we went to the moon. If anything, they would be the people to absolutely destroy us and saying that we didn't because they were the ones we were competing against. But if they admitted that we went there, then I think everyone else, guys, And also we're going back soon, sometime this decade. And we're also not the only country that's been there. And that's another thing that bothers me about the level of conspiracy people in this country. It's like, it's almost like they're oblivious that the rest of the world exists. So when it's like COVID was happening and they were like, oh, like, and, you know, it's a certain few people. Oh, this whole thing is a hoax, which is so ridiculous and disrespectful. But it's like, there are other people in other parts of the world that are dying. I don't think this is a hoax that just happens to be only affecting America. So there's just something about conspiracy people in this country that just seem to be so unaware of what else is happening in the world. And that's bothersome. Yeah.
Well, this is like the only place in the world where you actually like get to have a say.
Yeah.
And you know, have, like, I mean, not the only place. There are definitely other countries that, like, you know, the Scandinavians and, you know, Norway. I think like those are the only two places that are probably, you know. Right. But like the freedom to explore ideas, the freedom to call out the government on their bullshit. Well, that's actually like a little more doubtful nowadays, as we tend to be losing freedom of speech more and more each day.
Right.
But, you know, generally speaking, like, we do have a lot of that here. More than anywhere else, I would say.
Right. Absolutely.
So, you know, that gives you the freedom to, like, you know, question, like, explore and dig and just not trust.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, it makes me think of, like, flat earthers.
Yeah, Jesus.
I bet you
another subset of people that I just don't understand. I feel like flat Earth is like the gateway into. So you start as a flat earther, and then you're a moon landing denier, and then you're like a NASA's evil person, and like then you're like a hollow Earth, and it just doesn't fucking end. Like the most ridiculous things they come up with. But like something like a flat Earth, even I'd almost even accept the fact that you want to deny we landed on the moon, whatever. But like the Earth being flat. That just makes you a total dumbass to me. That I can't even understand why that need to think the Earth is flat is even surfaced once again. Like this has been proven for centuries now, and mathematically, and with experiments. And you can look at the fucking moon. Does that look flat? It has curves, and like there's just so much evidence that I don't understand. But I'm trying to honestly comprehend why people get drawn to it. And you're right, absolutely. There's like the freedom to do so. Also, you are privileged enough to have the time and sit here and think that everyone's lying to you. Yeah. But yeah, the flat earth thing, I don't get it.
Yeah, a couple of things that like with flat earthers, I mean, I've never really had to debate one, but I would love to.
I would love to watch that. Especially assessing their personality, you know?
Yeah. I'm like, so, what was your childhood like?
Right? Girl, there are so many. Please find one and bring them on your show. I would love that. It would be
fun, right?
Yeah.
Because, okay, like a lot of like the math and physics of proving that the Earth is in fact curved, I personally don't understand.
Sure.
Nor could I in a million years.
Sure.
Right? But there are a few very simple, you know, that are like not even that scientific. Yeah. And like I think one of them that stuck with me is like when you see a ship or a boat or something, right? And it's like, you know, you're looking at it and the horizon, it's getting further and further, or really anything that's like, you know, it's far and it's getting further, or you're getting further from it. The way it disappears, like even think mountains. Right? Like the bottom, you don't see it. You know, like fades and then you see the top.
Exactly.
But then I guess like the counter argument for that would be the atmosphere of Earth. It could make you, you know, have these like optical errors.
Oh, I haven't heard that.
You know
before.
What I mean?
Gotcha.
So it's like, sure, there's like you know, these like there's like gas in the atmosphere, like this and that. So maybe that could be an error. So okay, I could see if that could be shut down. But like, here's another one. When there's a lunar eclipse, right? The Earth comes between the sun and the moon, right, which casts a shadow of Earth on moon, right. That's the perfect opportunity for you to look at the moon and see the shadow of Earth.
Exactly.
Being
which is a curve.
Round.
Yeah, that's exactly right. That's probably the easiest way.
Easy.
There's literally, like, I just don't know how you would refute that. You know what I mean? And it is the easiest way for people to visually see it in real time happening. So, yeah. But even then, no matter what you say, no matter what you throw at them, once they've crossed that bridge, they don't come back, is what I've learned. And so with people who are questioning, I can still possibly convince them. But if you're coming at me with like, no, you guys are liars, the earth is flat, I don't even engage anymore, especially in person, because you're just here to fight. You're not going to change your mind. So why am I wasting my time and my mental health on this stuff? So it does get to me, but I'm so much better about it now than I used to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like you get annoyed.
Yeah, certainly. Oh, for sure. I can't stand willingness to be ignorant when you have infinite information at your fingertips these days and you choose to go down this other rabbit hole. But I guess that's what makes the world interesting, right? And there's a variety of us. I have to accept.
The way you said that.
I know, I guess I have to deal with it.
Rolled your eyes. You're like, I guess.
So I have to justify it.
That's also something that makes you such an INTJ. So to bring this back to your personality type, I had her take the Myers-Briggs Test, which I have, most of my guests take. And an INTJ is very rare.
Okay, gotcha.
A female INTJ is very, very rare. I don't know if you know this.
I didn't know that.
A female INTJ is like maybe 1%.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Holy crap. That's crazy.
Yeah, you're a unicorn.
Girl.
I know one other female INTJ.
Okay.
Also wears glasses.
She speaks harshly.
She does.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
But it's... INTJs are called the masterminds, right? Okay. So, like, each personality type has, like, their own, like, title, their own name, right? For example, like me, I'm an ENTP. Mine is, like, the innovator. Okay. INTJs are the masterminds. They're usually people who kind of want to stay behind the scenes, which is not your case because you're an actor and, you're very on social media, active on social media. But generally speaking, there are people who are behind the scenes. They are the masterminds. They come up with strategies and a long-term plan, and they just have such a good skill. They're very skilled at risk analysis.
Okay.
They're very good at strategizing long-term plans and risk analysis. So they can literally like map out a plan in their head in a way that not that many other personality types can, and they can quite literally see where the errors are, and they know how to direct those. That's what makes them masterminds. And they're usually the people that are willing to do the hard things that other people may not be down to do.
Sure.
They're the type of people that say, tell me what needs to be done and leave me to it. You cannot micromanage them. You have to give them something and then leave them. And be sure that it'll be done right. That's the thing. Right?
Wow, holy shit.
Yeah.
That's so accurate.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's crazy.
But then because of this work ethic they have, because of this constant thirst to, like, they're always the readers. They're always the people who are doing research and learning and understanding and, pondering. So it's completely understandable why they look down on people who don't do those things. They're kind of harsh when it comes to, when they speak to someone that they think they're of ignorant, or, someone who they think is dumb. And something that's a little annoying about INTJs, I'm sorry, is that they tend to think 90% of people are dumb.
Gotcha.
And it's because they're just
I can see that totally. I'll change it, I promise. But yeah.
Would you say that's accurate?
I think, there's a certain harsh judgment. It's like you say something dumb once and I'll never forget it, and I'll hold it against you forever. So and I'm trying to be better about it, especially, and you keep reminding me, it's like, I'm so harsh with conspiracy stuff when it comes to space is because I know better. And I'm more involved in the world, I should say. So I need to be aware of that. It's just so hard.
How's dating going for you?
Girl, I don't. I mean, I recently...
Dating in LA for someone like you.
Oh, holy hell. That's what, I just kind of intuitively realized that years ago. That's why I never even bothered since living in the city. I mean, I had one relationship in 2017, which sucked. And then very rarely I'll go on a date. So like a couple of months ago, I got accepted to that Raya app.
Raya.
And I'm like, oh, maybe it's vetted. People will be better. Last time I was in town, I went on 2 dates. And to be honest, the guys weren't too bad. But I just wasn't interested. I don't know. It's being way too harsh as a person for sure.
Yeah.
In this day and age, everyone feels like they have to be self-deprecating all the time, which I certainly am. Like even with the shoot that I'm doing this weekend, I'm like, I could be happy for myself. And I'm like, oh guys, it's just a commercial. Like, don't congratulate me. And so like, when is it ever enough? So I'm trying to be better about that shit, which is really difficult. So it's like, it's not just being like harsh with outsiders. We're that way with ourselves too. It's never good enough. It'll probably never will be, no matter what we accomplish in life. You know what I mean? And if we do hit a goal, it's like, okay, well, what's next? You can't just like revel in joy. For like a second. But you know, I hope that one day I'll click with someone, but I would probably be more open to it if I really cared to. It's just like, I'm not even genuinely not even giving a shit to like date. I'm not opposed to it, but I'm not at that phase in life where I'm like actively seeking to settle down just yet, you know, or even date for that matter. So
maybe you'll find another space nerd.
That's the goal. at least the interest in it.
Yeah, that would be cool.
Yeah, right. Just have that.
Maybe
common
someone
ground.
at Hubble.
I know, seriously. Any NASA JPL people watching or listening, find me on Instagram.
Slide in a DM.
That's right.
So what were we talking about before we talked about INTJ and your personality type? I completely forgot.
Probably just like flat earther stuff.
Flat earther stuff. Have you ever encountered one? Have you ever debated one?
So multiple times at the observatory, more so back in the day. I think that like the biggest event or thing that happened was that one time a group of like flat earther protests showed up, and then they were literally like protesting on the lawn and yelling with their bullhorns. And then one of my other colleagues, he's an older gentleman raised in New York, so he has a very forward personality as well. So he went out to like talk and confront, and then a whole altercation happened, and then even the cops came, and then like other patrons got involved. One of the flat earthers punched one of the patrons, and then he got arrested.
Unnecessary.
Yeah, right. It got like overly heated for nothing. I think he made like some homophobic slur at one of the patrons, and that guy got defensive. And so both were arrested, but only the flat earther got taken away because there was warrants for his arrest or something. Turned out to be this whole thing. But
they were like, let's take the dumb one.
Yeah, exactly. And they were all, just very strange people. Even like personality wise, it was hard to really, like I've never encountered that before. But to be honest, I've not really debated flat earthers. I, for some reason, have never been the one that they've approached. And there haven't been like that many. But I've had colleagues tell me all the time, like, just last hour I was upstairs on the main level and talked to a bunch of flat earthers. And I'm like, why the hell don't I ever see these people? And maybe it's a blessing that I don't, because I'll get too riled up. But I guess on TikTok, sometimes we get into arguments. But to be honest, I've even stopped replying, because no matter what I would say, it's not even a debate. Everybody's just looking for a fight. So, and
like, you're not trying to learn. No, you're trying to win.
Exactly. There's a huge difference, because there were like a couple of teenage girls in the past who at the observatory would ask me like, okay, so why is the earth not flat? And it's a great question and conversation. And so you could go through whatever evidence.
Gravity doesn't like things that are not round.
Yeah, exactly.
You look around, everything's round. Right. That's just how gravity likes it.
That's how gravity works. You know, it's going to pull on everything equally.
Yeah.
And so like they were very receptive, and it's totally fine that they were questioning, as long as they were open-minded to hearing at least my side of stuff. So that's kind of stuff I love. I mean, I don't love it, but it's fine. But then like you're coming in with like the absolute, the earth is flat and you guys are all liars and sheep. They throw those insults at us all the time too. At that point, I'm just like, I'm not going to bother.
But you see, that's the point where the whole thing, I feel like, lies. Mm-hmm. You know, coming in from like a psychology perspective of it, I feel like a lot of times people go through these like, you know, avenues just to get to the point where they get to call the other person a sheep.
Right.
That whole thing. Because look, if they were really looking for scientific data, plenty of it out there.
Right.
And it's not questionable.
Right.
There are some things out there that are questionable.
Sure, absolutely.
Right? But this is one of those things that like we know.
Yeah,
We've
exactly.
seen it.
Right.
We've seen it.
Exactly.
You know?
Yeah.
So then it's like the question isn't like, why do people believe in flat earth? But it's like, why do people believe in a conspiracy?
Yes.
You know?
Exactly.
And it's just like the answer is same reason as always. It's the lack of trust. It's where you
Right.
call the other person a sheep. You know?
Right.
You're the one who trusts easy. I don't trust.
Right.
You're the sheep. I'm not. I'm above it.
Right.
You know?
Absolutely.
It's like that emotion is so much stronger. That feeling is so much stronger than any scientific data you show these people.
right.
Because they're going to hold on to that feeling, that emotion,
It's all
that
emotionally
authority.
based. Right. I gotcha.
You know?
Do you think there's a sense of like, I'm here to save you all because I know the truth? Do you think they have that kind of savior mentality about them to some degree? Like, let me wake you all up. I'm here to show you that
The truth.
yeah. Like, does that, do you think that has any correlation?
I can see that, but I feel like a savior type person would be someone who thinks of their goal as saving and directing and bringing the truth out.
Gotcha.
And a person like that, because that's their deepest held a goal and value, they understand that in order to achieve that, you have to show extreme amounts of patience and respect. Right?
Gotcha.
So then when somebody comes and like, you know, they do that, what you're saying, which is always what they do, you know,
Sure.
then that's not so much of somebody who has a vision of saving and bringing truth and reality out. That's someone who wants to feel above.
Got it.
They want to feel right. They want to win. They want that conflict.
Right.
Because they want to be the smart, the know. Like, I'm in the know, you don't know.
Yeah.
It's not like, let's know together.
Gotcha.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's a brilliant distinction because I had a hard time, like, was that a part of it? But you're absolutely right. And that's why you need to get one on your show so you can understand what happened in their childhood. What led to this point of like really falling for conspiracies?
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's like once you fall down that hole, you believe many of them.
And it's easy to fall down.
It really
like
is.
Conspiracies are very convincing.
Right.
Like I've caught myself like watching documentaries or like, you know, YouTube videos, and I like sometimes watch myself like slip. Never about Earth being flat.
Sure.
Never. But like, you know, some other things.
Sure.
And I'm like, it feels a little kooky.
Right.
You know?
Right.
You just got to snap out of it. Or you just got to leave the possibility out there that, you know what? Sometimes we don't know everything.
No,
I don't know what
exactly
happened to
right.
Kennedy.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, totally. Right. There is a lot of that. That's so true. I think like I'm extra harsh on like science-y type and like earth things. But with other stuff, I would never claim to know like, oh no, we know who shot Kennedy and all this kind of stuff. Like when it comes to like hardcore politics in like the political world, I'm never going to claim that I would never claim that conspiracies are false. You know what I mean? Because I have no idea.
It could be.
You just never know.
Especially when it's politics.
Exactly. It's probably way shadier than anyone thinks.
That shit is so complex.
Yeah.
I studied political science for 3 years.
Okay.
And I changed my major because I literally said, fuck this.
Right.
Like you study it and then you have this illusion of understanding what's going on. You know?
Oh, gotcha.
You have this like thought of like, oh, they make you like, you know, read the news and listen to the news and like, you know, follow everything. So you get this like illusion of like, I understand politics.
Sure.
Like, probably don't.
Yeah.
You probably don't. It's one of those things.
Yeah. That's
like,
so interesting. What made you choose it to begin with?
I wanted to go to law school.
Oh, nice. Okay.
I wanted to be a good Persian daughter.
Yeah.
You know,
I feel,
make my family proud, which means you have to be a lawyer or a doctor or at the very least an engineer.
Yeah. Girl, Indian people are the same way. That's why everyone in my family but me is a doctor. But being the youngest, I got to be the black sheep. So maybe I'll play one on TV one day. But I totally feel you. But good for you, like finding your own path. It's tough when you come from backgrounds like ours.
It's tough, but it's also amazing because
Yeah.
of like the social pressure that's
Yes.
on you. You almost don't have a choice to be a loser.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
It's like not a choice.
It's not an option. It's funny. I tell like my American like white friends this all the time.
Yeah.
I'm like, my parents didn't give two shits that I graduated high school because it was just expected. And like going to college, like those kinds of things are not celebrated. They're expected.
A bachelor's is at the very least.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
The very least.
Like I have 4 years of college and I'm still the least educated person in my family. Yeah, that's just how it is. So
It'd be like that.
that's right.
What is like a really fun topic that like comes up in your social media a lot?
I think like one thing that I enjoy talking about, because this goes back to, you know, when we're talking about Einstein and imagination, is the relativity and the fact when people just throw around the fact that time is relative and they mean it metaphorically, it's really not. It's actually like scientifically true. And I think the idea that time itself can be distorted is so fascinating. So even on Earth, it can be measured. So the lower you are to the ground, elevation any way wise, like if I were to just lay here and be lower than you, time would actually move just slightly slower for me than it would for you. And so that's why like the core of the Earth, I think, is like technically 4 years younger than the crust of the Earth. So that's all to do with general relativity. And I think that's just so fascinating. So there's that. And also the closer you move to the speed of light, the slower time moves for you too. And so just generally speaking, the faster you go, time is just, it's like immeasurably slow, but still slower. And so for, you know, they had this experiment with like twin astronauts, and one was in the International Space Station for 500 some days, I think. And when he came back, I think they measured like he's just like a fraction of a second younger than his twin brother now.
How would they even measure that?
You know, I have to actually look into this because that is something I wanted to talk about recently, but it has...
Death of cells, maybe?
I think so. I think that's like just like I think you're absolutely right. Just like the degradation of the body, and as precise as they can get it. But how they have measured it so far, just in general with time change, it's just atomic clocks, like keeping one on Earth and one in the ISS or whatever. But to me, the fact that like time can be manipulated is just so fascinating. So you go near like a black hole and it's like total chaos at that point. And it's like you can supposedly see like the entire past of the universe and what's to come, which is crazy. And that's kind of why I like that movie Arrival too with Amy Adams, because it really messes with time like that. And then that also brings you the implication of, because it happens in the movie, like if you were to know your future, would you do anything differently? And with that being said, could you even, or are you still bound by making that result happen no matter what? So like if you, yeah, right. I know, another good movie. So it's like, okay, if you knew like your future daughter was going to die, would you even have her? But then are you, no matter what though, are you like compelled to, just because that's how, I don't know, mathematically with the universe or whatever, was it going to happen inevitably? So like you couldn't prevent it.
It's kind of like this question that like The Alchemist raises. I don't know if you've read it.
Yes, years ago.
Right. It's kind of like, can you miss your destiny?
Right.
Can you like somehow do something or take a wrong turn or make different choices that you were supposed to and like miss it?
Yeah.
Or like go somewhere else.
Right, exactly.
You
or
know?
like no matter how you try to deviate, were you destined to end up there anyway, no matter what you did? And we'll probably never know the answers to those questions, but it's really cool to me that like literal science can bring up that kind of thought about essentially philosophy. Yeah. So, but the way that Einstein thought of this stuff too back in 1910, something like that, is just really fascinating. Like he didn't allow what was accepted at that point to bind his thought process. He literally went for a walk, allowed his imagination to be open, and he came up with relativity, which is like one of the most important theories of the 21st century. So
what did he think of that question?
So at that point, like prior to his idea that time itself is relative and can change, everybody thought that time was absolute throughout the universe and the speed of light is what can vary. So with his theories of relativity, he essentially flipped that. So he's like, no, time itself can be relative no matter where, depending on where you are in the universe, but it's the speed of light that's absolute. And that's what we have accepted since that point. Obviously, these things being theory, which brings me to another point. I found it kind of disappointing on my TikToks that I've learned that people don't quite understand what scientific theory is because the word theory gets thrown around so much in life these days. So people are like, oh, I have this theory that blah, 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 blah. And it's like, no, bro, you don't actually have a theory.
You have an idea.
You have an idea, right? You're speculating. But like a scientific theory.
I say that all the time.
Right, exactly. You would know. It's like.
But like a scientific, it would have to be like falsifiable.
Yeah, it's gone through so much to be accepted as a theory. Right. So it's like evidence, peer review. It hasn't been able to be disproven. Like in order to earn the title of a theory, it's gone through so much.
I say that all the time.
Right?
I have a theory.
Which is like normal vernacular. But then like because people do that, which I do it all the time too, it's like people think like, oh, relativity or gravity, that can all, it's just a theory. I'm like, bro, it's scientific theory though. Yeah. It's gone through so much to earn the title of a theory. Yeah. So I constantly have to remind people of that because you put a theory, a scientific theory like general relativity or evolution even, and people think like they can shit all over it. And with science allows people to question everything, right? Yeah. That's the point. But like, you know, when it comes to a theory, you can certainly question, but keep in mind though, like it's quite accepted for a reason. It's not just some random hypothesis that some random person threw together and science is like, okay. It's like, no, it's gone through a lot. So if you're going to try to rebuttal it, you better come up with some really good shit. Yeah. Which would be great if someone did. Yeah.
Would you say that the Earth being round, it has been more proven than gravity? Because we actually don't understand gravity.
Yeah. So I went through like days of my own, I don't want to say research because technically, once again, it's not research, but understandings and readings of gravity. Yeah. So Earth being round is like a proven fact. Gravity, there's like theories. So general relativity is a theory that explains gravity. Newton's law of universal gravitation, although it's a law, it does explain only one aspect of how gravity can work. But there's no like unifying law of gravity that encompasses everything in the universe. So for like Newton's law of universal gravitation, it works for like our solar system and like close bodies like the sun and how it affects us and the moon and things like that. But it doesn't explain like on a large scale. And then there is like actual mathematical formulas for Newton's. So Einstein's general relativity explains a bit more on the large scale. But then neither of them can explain what happens like in a black hole or like extreme cases. So that's why there's no like fact law. I shouldn't say fact, there are facts. There's no law that encompasses everything just because no one's come up with it yet. So it's like one part Newton, one part Einstein, one part still to be determined. But you're absolutely right. Gravity, highly accepted theories. There's equations for it, but there's not one thing that encompasses all of it yet. So that's why it's still a little iffy for people.
I cannot wait for our dear scientists to finally figure out what's inside a black hole.
I know, right?
That has been just, they're like, you know, brewing.
I know.
Like, I cannot wait. What do you think they're going to find?
I know, girl. I feel like, okay, so a lot of people have a problem with what happened with Interstellar because remember when he he fell through the black hole and then like he went into like this fifth dimensional thing.
They bring in the idea of a black hole?
Yeah.
I'm for sure gonna watch it.
Yeah, you totally should. Like even just, it's just beautifully created and like the way they did the black hole. So fun fact about that, this movie came out in 2014 and the way they simulated the black hole, we finally got the first image of a black hole released in 2019 and they look very similar. So the fact that that movie came out 5 years prior to the real image and they look similar, they did a really good job. I will say though, I think they knew what they were doing because there was Nobel Prize winning theoretical physicist Kip Thorne who consulted on the film. And actually this film was technically his idea. That's a different topic.
What's his name?
Kip Thorne, Kipthorne. Yeah. And so I actually would go with whatever he thinks is inside a black hole because this is like the shit that he does. But just my general understanding of what they say is like once you fall in, you start to get spaghettified. And so whatever falls in first, like your feet, it's going to start to get stretched apart down to its very like subatomic particles, and that'll start happening at your feet. And
in the black hole.
Once you're in the black hole, because the gravity is so ridiculously strong that it just rips everything apart, including atoms. And so, but like you would see it happening to your feet first, and then everything just gets shredded, is so what they say.
It's expansive. It's an expansive force.
I guess. Oh, I'm sorry.
Like it doesn't melt. It doesn't condense.
Right.
Like its nature is to expand.
Yeah. Like, yeah. Right. I guess that's a good way to put it. I never thought of it like that, but just to like, yeah, just rip everything apart.
Beautiful.
Yeah. I know. It's just, it's so destructive. And they say like, you know, in an inconceivable amount of time when the universe, according to their most accepted theory, like dies out, the last things to really evaporate away are black holes. So they're just going to be around forever. And eventually, again, very far into the future, the universe is just going to be black holes because they're going to be like the last thing that lives because they just live for so long. And so that would just be purely terrifying because you just have all these black holes, these destructive things just floating throughout the universe. So it's creepy to think about, but really fascinating. But yeah, everybody loves black holes. They're so interesting.
So there's not like another multiverse.
Yeah, the multiverse theory. So I went down this rabbit hole again not too long ago.
That's a great rabbit hole to
go
down.
The like right multiverse stuff is so fascinating. So the way to get like really accurate information on it is to go through quantum mechanics, which is to me the most confusing stuff that exists in this world. And for people who study it, like a person I would recommend, his name is Sean Carroll. He's a professor at Caltech. Love him. And he's so good at explaining
it for dumb people.
Yeah, the most complicated stuff. But because of like what I've read on his point of view on the multiverse, I have a better understanding of it. I still don't know if I could say that I completely believe it. Essentially, you know, like alternate realities is another term for it, but it's so fascinating. So like, and that all starts with like Schrodinger's cat, the thought experiment of like, you know, the cat's in the box and their little poison goes off. And until you open the box, you're not going to know if it's dead or alive. So for like a brief period of time, both possibilities exist. So when you open it, if the cat is dead, that means the alive cat branched off into an alternate reality. It's like Rick and Morty, essentially.
Okay, so one time we were in Miami with my friends. Trust me, this relates somehow.
Sure.
And like we're drinking, partying. It's like 2 a.m. I'm in the pool and this like one chick that I had just befriended. Shout out to Rachel Starr. I'll have her for sure listen to this. She like comes to a corner in the pool with me and she just opens this whole thing on me. Like I had no idea about this. And I'm like, and I was just standing in a corner of, this is the example that she brought. And I thought she just fucked up. I was like, time for you to go to bed.
For sure. That's like understandable. Totally.
She was like, if you stabbed me right now, this is the example she brought. Very aggressive. I know. She was like, if you stabbed me right now, if I die, the alive version on me goes to another quantum possibility, whatever it's called.
Right.
And I was like, no, if I stab you, you die.
Right.
Like I could not understand.
But girl, no, it's because it's like, it's inconceivable. It's so much simpler just to be like one possibility. And but then according to what they say in quantum mechanics though, and like the Schrodinger's cat, and there's a whole like history of that lineage of people who contributed. Essentially, okay, Hugh Everett, based off of the Schrodinger's cat experiment, is the one who came up with this called many worlds theory, where it's like all possibilities exist. So yeah, like with her example, she would die in one of them, maybe in the reality that's there, or in the one that branches off that'll never intersect with the current one.
What does that mean? Like, I have to look more into that.
Oh, no, for sure.
There are so much, like, just not comprehending.
Oh, my God. Quantum mechanics. And for someone who, like, loves space and all this stuff, like, it takes a toll on your brain. Like, you have to read the same thing 18 times for it to really start. Yeah. Or, like, listen to Sean Carroll speak on YouTube for, like, 50 hours, the same video, just to let it to start to sink in. But like, there's just other, I mean, alternate like dimensions is also, there are all these words I believe are interchangeable, but it's just, there's like existing parallel planes. And so when our reality is in one plane, then this one branches off to another. And it's inconceivable because, you know, we exist in a 3-dimensional world and you're like, where the hell is it? Where are these other planes? But that, it's almost like magic. It's the only way I can describe that kind of idea.
I want to know so bad. Like the one thing I want is like once I die, I just want to get all of these answers from someone. If it takes dying to know.
Exactly. I hope that's our reward. I've always thought that. You're like, you know what?
I have questions.
Yeah. Like, you know what? Good job. You survived this life on Earth. Your reward is when you die, you get all the answers to stuff. That would be amazing. Then I could look forward to dying.
What would be your first question?
Holy shit. And I've never even thought of that. I guess I'd have to ask the generic God question because Did
Michael Jackson really die?
I know.
You know?
Yeah, right. Was it an accident? And then like the entity there will be like, are you serious? That's your question?
Yeah, right. So disappointed. You're asking celebrity questions, really?
You know what? You're going to send you to the other realm.
Yeah. Go take her to like the level 1 heaven where the kids are.
Yeah, exactly. Right. But you know, now that I guess because we're talking about like multiverse stuff, maybe that's what I would ask. Like, is that real, or is it just our one reality that's the only thing that exists? So that's probably what I'd ask.
I would also want to know if everything's planned. Like, you know, the idea of maktub, which is also something that the alchemist brings. Sure. Like, it is written. I think that would be probably my first question.
Right.
You know, because like, are we in the driver's seat?
Yeah.
Or are we in the passenger seat?
Right. That's exactly true. So, like, no matter what, were we destined to, like, you know.
Yeah.
When we died, was that going to happen, like, regardless of what we did in life? I've always wanted to know that, too.
That's the biggest one.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, because it's like, can I just chill?
Yeah. Yeah.
Can I just relax? And knowing that I'll end up where I'm supposed to end up.
Right.
You know?
Exactly.
If something's meant for you, it's meant for you.
Right.
You
absolutely.
know? Or is it that no?
Yeah, it's literally all in your control. And if you didn't get to where you want to be, that's totally on you.
So fuck that we don't know.
I know, seriously. So you could like spend your entire life killing yourself to get somewhere.
Yeah.
And
then some people don't.
Yeah, I know.
And then like someone literally like tries. I mean, I'm not saying you can get really good things without trying at all.
Sure.
You know, I don't believe in overnight.
Yes, exactly.
You know? But I do believe that, you know, some people work towards something probably their whole life. Maybe they're doing it wrong. Maybe they're not in the right place with the right people who can show them those opportunities. But there are a lot of those people who will never get to where they set out for themselves to get when they're 18. And this is the most bitter truth about life.
Right. Exactly. No, but very true, though.
Because like we always want to think that everything's going to be okay. Yeah. Everything's going to be all right. But it's like, what if it's not?
Yeah, exactly.
It's like we don't want to think of that.
No, not at all. And especially when you're
gross.
like, I know. And like when you're young and you have these dreams for the future, you never think you're going to be one of those where it won't work out for you. But you're like, holy shit, more often than not, like you kind of end up being one of those people. Which is so sad to think about, but especially being here in Hollywood, I meet them all the time. They're like, yeah, you know, I came out here, and they're much older now, of course, and I came out here in my 20s to be an actor, and it didn't work out. I'm like, I'm so sorry. I'm sorry that happened. But at least you tried, right? Yeah.
As long as you try.
That's the thing.
That's the only thing you have.
That's exactly.
What else are you going to do?
What else can you do? And I think it'd be so much better to be like, at least I tried, and instead of always wondering. I'd rather try and quote unquote fail than like just always sit at home and wonder. Yeah. What if? So at least you know.
I know for sure what would a flat earther's first question would be when they die.
I know.
And that is, were those people who thought the earth is round, were they dumb or not?
Right.
It's not to know if the earth was in fact round or not. No. Because that's not even a question.
No, that's right. They're going to die.
They know.
They're going to take that to the grave. But are round earthers idiots? I just need to know this. That's so true. That's all they care about.
So I actually started working with this company, which I think you would appreciate a lot. It's called Worldview. Okay. They haven't launched yet. So technically, I'm not going to release this episode until the end of September when they launch.
Sure.
And what they're doing is space tourism.
Oh, how cool.
And that's sick.
Yeah.
So
that's awesome.
the main scientist guy, Alan Stern,
Oh, yeah, I know him.
You
Not
do?
personally. I've seen him speak. He's come to the observatory.
Oh, yeah.
I love him.
Yeah,
He's
yeah,
the
yeah,
reason
yeah.
we know what Pluto looks like these days.
Wow, really?
Yeah, he's awesome. Brilliant.
So we had a trip to Utah a couple of
Okay.
weeks ago with the company, and they brought like, you know, all these like amazing like people. They spared no cost,
Mm-hmm.
and they're such cool people. Like I talked to Alan for a while. We like clicked.
Oh, that's so awesome.
Yeah, and he was like a like the main scientist guy for Elon, Jeff Bezos, and Richard Branson.
Gotcha.
Like the
Not
three.
surprised.
Yeah, yeah. And so they're really cool, and like their goal for this voyage is very cool because they don't really think to abandon Earth and leave and go
Right.
see what's next. It's so much more. Their whole vision for this is to, when you are in a problem and you're so entangled in it and it's so hard to think straight and make the right decision, but if you pull out and you look at it from above, sometimes like things become so much more clear to you,
Right.
right?
Absolutely.
So they're trying to democratize rather space travel, so that it's not just for the uber rich and like everybody can go, so that they can like go out in the space. You don't land on another planet or anything. You just go in the
Right.
space, you orbit the Earth, you look down at the Earth,
Right.
you see Mother Earth
Yeah.
from afar.
Exactly.
You see the things we're doing to it. We're
Yeah,
killing it.
Absolutely.
We're torturing it.
Right.
So it's not to like go up there and be like, "Whoa, the fuck Earth, we're out of here." No, it's like to go up there and look back
Yeah.
and rediscover Earth, which is the hashtag they're using. And they're so committed to this
That's amazing.
to then get inspired
Yeah.
and then come back and hopefully do something with that inspiration and that vision and that knowledge that you just gained from doing this extremely amazing thing that was never
Right.
possible ever.
Exactly.
Right?
That is so cool.
So cool.
That's amazing. And you know, that ties back to like what we started in the beginning of how much like space is not just a science, but it's a philosophy. And Carl Sagan, who I mentioned in the 60s, he's essentially he made that concept. He brought that to the forefront. And so talk about like rediscovering Earth whenever, I can always text you after as well. There's a thing, his like poem called Pale Blue Dot. I'm sure some people have heard of it, but like, so I forgot when it came out. Valentine's Day 19 something. But there's a spacecraft called Voyager 1, which is the furthest spacecraft that's ever gone so far. And it was launched in the early 70s, I believe. So when it was 4 billion miles away, it turned around and took a picture of Earth. So if you had like a black box, there's one tiny little pixel of a blue dot and just the perspective that gives you. And he wrote this essential poem called Pale Blue Dot. And it talks exactly about that. The perspective, just turning around and looking at our home gives to people and how it's life-changing for everybody. The reason Griffith Observatory exists is because Griffith J. Griffith, back in the early 1900s, went to Mount Wilson in Pasadena and he looked at Saturn through their, I think, 60-inch telescope. And it changed his life so much that he gave money to build a Griffith Observatory so everybody could look through a telescope. So I think that's amazing that they're doing that, because it would be life-changing. And maybe we would take the problems here more seriously when we're literally looking at it. 100%. That is so cool. Girl, I'm so proud of you. That's amazing.
So cool.
Yeah.
And I'm quite literally not just obsessed with this whole company and the people in it, but their goal and also like their attitudes, the way they're looking at things,
right?
You know? And it's like their whole thing is to help alleviate, make things better.
Exactly.
You know?
Right.
So they're sending us.
Really?
In 2 years.
That's amazing.
And I had an idea. I was like, why don't we take the head of the flat earthers?
Right.
Like the leader.
Right.
We take that person.
Yeah.
Sit him down, buckle him up.
Exactly.
Shoot up there.
Right.
Bitch, look out the window.
I know. You finally see
problem
the curve.
solved.
Girl, I swear though, they'll come up with, oh, there's like a fisheye lens thing on this window. They've said that shit before, but like I still hope that it will do something. I think that's a great idea.
Right.
Flat Earth, like they have their own website and you can find their like main cult leader or whatever.
Yeah.
But I think that's
Probably
such a
someone
good
named
idea.
Chad.
Yeah, I know, seriously. Sitting in the basement somewhere. But that's such a good idea. That is amazing. It's going to change your life. That's so cool.
Can't wait.
Yeah, man, I got to do that at some point. Let me know what they charge.
We'll talk.
Yeah.
We'll talk. We're going to wrap this up. I'll definitely tell you more about it
Yeah,
right
sure,
now.
sure.
But thank you so much for coming.
Of course. Thank
This
you for
has been
having
amazing.
me. This time, I don't know how long we've been talking, but it's flown by. It's just been
Almost an hour and a half.
Holy shit. It doesn't feel like it. This
Yeah.
is lovely. I'm so glad to share, I don't know, just exchange thoughts like this with another lovely lady.
It was amazing. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, everybody. Bye.
Move with the rhythm, shake it up, stop when the clock hits 13. You've been working, but you're flirting with the weekend. You can freak out. 1 in a million, you're a gem, shine when the light grows dim. Sing